Alrighty, so now we're going with our sponsor role. Good morning. It's just going to take a second to go live. Oops. 1 second. Let's start again. Here we go. We're going live.
Here we are on the awkward silence moment.
Here we go. Good morning.
Teach an old dog new tricks. Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
Recently, we were concerned about our recon time and decided to look into reconditioning workflow software. After doing our research, I can confidently say we finally found the software that was right for us. We love that it packs robust data, control precision, clear communications, and performance accountability, all onto my desktop or mobile, so I'm always in touch. Before this, we manually tracked our recon process. We just assumed we were doing okay. We were wrong. After someone in my 20 group told me he used the software to improve his recon time to sale to just 3 to 5 days, I just had to look into it. Their team of recon experts all have hands-on dealership experience. We all benefit from faster time to line, inventory turns, and competitive advantages. To learn more, visit rapidrecon.com.
And good morning. That's our newest sponsor. No video yet. So we're going to slide deck. So thanks very much to all our sponsors. I think everyone can see that. I can hope so. Yeah. So essentially, Retail Resilient, Gail's on the call, Jim Lehman from Rapid Recon, and Elfie from F&I Elite. Jennifer unfortunately has a young child, so she's not live today, but will be. She's asked me if babysitting services were included in the sponsorship, and I said no. But I'm always open to opportunities. Anyway, so I had a couple books that I was thinking about. Millionaire Service Advisor by a buddy of mine, Chris Collins. He's a pretty opinionated guy in the service side of the business from California. The Starbucks Experience, 5 Principles of Turning Ordinary into Extraordinary from Joseph Michelli, and Be Our Guest from Disney Institute. If you're not familiar with Disney, great training on customer service experience. Go ahead, Jeff, with our disclaimer.
Well, one thing I just wanted to say before we did that, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our sponsors. Without you, we would be sitting here still, but we appreciate the support and make life different so we can do all this fancy background stuff now. And I do have to say one thing that always boggles my mind is that Starbucks has probably 75 or 100,000 locations, and your experience almost every time is the same. And sometimes I wonder why we can't do that in our industry. But anyways, in the Auto Hub, we have a disclaimer. We talked about disclaimers a little bit earlier. Our friend and who shares the same hairline, Mr. Rogan, does not have a disclaimer. But the views and opinions expressed here in the Auto Hub Show are those of our guests and guest speakers and don't necessarily reflect the official policy of the Auto Hub Show. Ian Nethercott, or of course myself, Jeff Polo. Please go to our website and read this in thoroughly to make sure we're in understanding.
And so the show is the Sales versus Service Show. Thanks very much for everyone from the guests to the listener side, and we're going live. So We're all live already, so just give me a sec. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. We're going to go through our guests here today. One thing I do also want to say about the battle between fixed and variable ops, those of you over 35 years old will recognize the Ian's background, spy versus spy. And so, you know, sometimes we laughed at that because a lot of the times that's what it seems to be, especially in meetings. But our guests today, the first guest is a person who needs no introduction to the Auto Hub Show, a guest many a times, an audience member many times, and of course, a great person for the fixed op industry, especially for ladies. Christine Mitchell, the car lady, coming to us from my favorite line, which is a sprawling metropolis of mid-May, Ontario.
Mild May. Mild May.
Mild May.
Yeah, Mild May. We're a
Better
town,
than Mold
we're a
May.
village. It's a village. We got 1,200 people, and we include the cats.
Cool. Please say hi and introduce yourself to everybody.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Yeah, it's me, Christine Mitchell, the car lady. I host after-sales seminars at car dealerships across Canada. I was a technician first for 12 years and started the company 25 years ago. Last month was our 25th anniversary. I've met thousands of people. I've answered thousands of questions at dealerships to transition people from the sales to the service department. Happy to be here today.
Thank you so much. Joining us today from Phoenix, Arizona, which is a great place to be around this time of year, is Gene Girdley, who's the president and founder of Delray Learning. Gene, please introduce yourself and thank you for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here, Ian and Jeff. And hello, everyone. I'm Gene Girdley. And as Jeff said, I am the president and founder of Delray Learning and Development. I'm a retail automotive guy. Started in the car business way back in 1976, fixing cars at a Chevron gas station. Ran my own business out of my bright yellow Pinto station wagon called Gene's Auto Dock. And then I got into the sales side. I worked in retail for Saturn and Saab. Saab, I was a service manager and a sales manager. And on the Saturn side, I was sales, finance, and salesperson, finance manager, sales manager, BDC manager. And last year, I served as director of development for Traver Connect. So been around quite a while. I'm a virtual learning specialist.
Perfect, thank you. And representing another person on the fixed side is Wolfgang Kohler, who's an automotive after-sales consultant with Firing on All Cylinders Automotive Consulting, author of a great book of the same name. And joining us from Waterloo, Ontario, Wolfgang, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on. Been on here before, so it's great to be back. So together with my business partner, Andy Campbell, we run Firing on All Cylinders Automotive Consulting. We do after-sales consulting. Spent my entire life in after-sales. Started off at a BMW dealership and worked my way up through, warranty administrator, service advisor, service manager, fixed ops manager, and then I moved on to Mercedes-Benz, and I worked for them for 12 years. And then I was actually invited to Switzerland to open up a Mercedes-Benz store, which is what's in my background, in Switzerland. And it was the first MAR 2020 concept store for Mercedes-Benz, and I was asked to come over there and develop their after-sales processes there in this new concept. And then came back to Canada and started this consulting business with my friend.
Well, one thing I have to tell you, in the background, if that's a European store, many times we've had people on here that talk about from North America that say, well, we should be more like Europe with little dealerships, etc. And if you've ever been there, there's not a lot of little dealerships. There's a whole bunch of big ones.
Yeah, that's big stuff.
And considering they have less real estate than we do, that's pretty impressive. And last but not least, the only person representing the variable ops, so to speak, side is Brett Frederico, is a remarketing manager of Finn in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate you being here with your beautiful background of the dusty pink walls. I had to pick on you for that.
No,
Please
it's
introduce
okay,
yourself.
because I am sitting in my wife's office. Our house is very small, and my office is out in a shed out back. So I am enjoying the nice pink office of my wife while she is out of town.
Terrific. Thank you again for joining us. Boy, today I'm tongue-tied. And it's because I've been stuck at home for 9 days. I was away and I tested positive when I came back. So I'm officially a COVIDiot. Gee, Ian, look at this pan and nobody can see it.
Well, anyway. Welcome, everybody. Does the front end versus back end rivalry still exist today? And let's start with, I don't know, Gene, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, well, over the years, the manufacturers, with the focus on trying to level the playing field, have created an environment where it shouldn't be a battle between the two. Because it used to be that the service departments were always in the back of the store, but then over the years, they've started putting them side by side, which was intentional to try and get more interaction between the two. So I don't think that there's an intentional separation or a battle between the two or a competition against the two, but it's all about focus, Ian. I don't think that either one of them focus enough on the other and try to create synergy. I think there's still an opportunity there.
Well, Gene, I have to say one of my pet peeves at the moment is dealerships that are sitting empty, yet have quite a full service parking lot in the back. And I've always said, well, if they're going to work together, why don't they wash their customers' cars and park them in the used car lot?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Yeah.
Multiple acres of empty space for customer sales parking.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I just have to say hi to Jim Lehman and John Latka. We've done stuff together before, so good to see you guys and everybody else on the show too. Thanks for being here.
Rock and roll. Let's go with Wolfgang. What do you think?
Well, yeah, if the rivalry still exists or not, I mean, I think it does. I hope that dealer principals and GMs recognize that and try to work on it. I mean, that's in my opinion, one of the things that you want to try to work on. But I mean, the sexy part of the business is the front end, and selling cars is the fun stuff. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of dealer principals or GMs that have, they've more than likely come up through the ranks in sales and been promoted to GM and then maybe got their own store, which is great. But they don't have a lot of experience in after sales, and I think after sales tends to be a part of the business that some people regard as that necessary evil in the back, but it's a tremendous opportunity. Like Gene said, I think that people, if they realize that they can develop that synergy between the two departments, it's successful for everybody. So I think that's definitely a really good point. So
thanks, Wolfman. Brett?
Yeah, I think it still does, based on the culture of the dealership. I think a lot of the GMs, as Wolfgang said, have come up from one side or the other, and they were always competing with the other departments, and it just kind of goes through there. They should be working together, not competing against each other, but everyone in the business likes to compete.
Fantastic. Christine, last but not least, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there definitely used to be. I've worked both sides of the aisle. And, when I was a technician, we always saw the front of the house, the service department or the sales department always had the pizza party. They always got the matching jackets. They got everything, the party was at the front and the work was in the back. But I think COVID changed that. I think COVID took an opportunity for dealers to really look at what kept the lights on and parlay that into building a relationship, because sales needed service for the first time. And Wolfgang, you said something that struck me as interesting, because I did an interview a couple of months ago with Troy Shear down in the States. And I said to him, I know it's not PC, service isn't sexy, but it's essential. And he loved that. And I just wanted to say that, service is essential, always has been essential, but COVID really brought this into murky relief, where we needed service more than ever. And I think that the rivalry changed its dynamics, and where they needed to be more of a partnership, because there was no cars in the lot and the only mining you could do was from service. So I think COVID certainly helped the service department in a lot of ways, and helped a lot of dealership culture in a lot of ways.
Cool. Thanks for that, Jeff.
Christine, I don't know what you're saying. I think it's awfully sexy, especially up north in the northern part of the States in Canada in the winter. You know, you got a car on the hoist and you're reaching inside to take a wheel off. It's stuck. You look underneath and sludge and mush and slush. It falls on your head. That's sexy.
Yeah, listen, I remember those days. But listen, look at even the marketing that's done at a dealership level, right? And the service department, you got Matthew McConaughey, and the sales department, you got Matthew McConaughey driving around in a Lincoln.
Right, all right,
People are
all right.
camping. People are having fun. Nobody ever shows service as something that's essential, right? How do we market service to be more palatable for the customer? Because most customers will tell us there's three things they want to know in service. When can I bring it in? How much is it going to cost? When can I get it back? And if we could turn the dial up on that and make that attractive, you'd sell more service. That's a fact.
Well, couldn't you get some pop stars to do that in the service department?
Well, other than myself, I'm not sure who else we could get.
You and Nicki Minaj, you know.
Years ago, Saturn had a commercial called Jelly Donuts, and it was a guy driving across the country, and he stopped at all the Saturn stores for the Jelly Donuts, but it was all about fixed operations, about service, because they had all of the data about that customer in the system at every Saturn store, and it was talking about that customer experience. So that was a great marketing strategy back then. Christina, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me anything you like.
So when you said that COVID changed everything, do you think that when things loosen up and if we get back to normal and the chip shortage goes away, that the intention will still stay focused on that synergy, or do you think it'll go back to the way it was?
I think it's going to stay focused on that synergy. And I think that the dealerships have also found new opportunities from the general manager's office, because it was mentioned in this group, most GMs were brought through the sales ranks.
Right.
But when GMs were forced to look at their numbers by their owners and their manufacturers, for the first time, we had to talk about detailing, accessories, winter tires. We had to look outside of sales to actually generate revenue and, again, keep those lights on. So I think that the culture has changed in that service department. I don't see it as a rivalry as much as a collaboration now. And that's what I built my company on, right? My whole job is to thank you for your purchase with a seminar and spin you back to service.
Yeah,
so
I hope you're right.
We can maintain.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. One thing I learned, and I spent some time with a Harley dealer, and they take it to a different level, and they actually do something I tried to do when I was running a car dealerships, is get salespeople to walk customers through service, and that's tough. However, this place, when somebody did a deal and they did the bell ring, of course, after that, they'd introduce them to the clothing department, which of course in cars isn't as big a deal, but then took them to service where they introduced them there, set their first appointment, gave them a battery tender. Could you imagine somebody buying a Corvette or a Porsche and getting a free battery tender? Wow. And then walking them through the shop, then over to parts and accessories, because frankly, in the winter, except down south, motorcycles, you got to live on selling accessories and service. But tell me something. As we move through the product shortage and service becomes that much more important, what can fixed ops do to raise their importance on dealership profitability? Because frankly, sales, and I don't know who said it, but the only place for incremental growth right now is in fixed ops. How can they make their profitability higher? And with that, I'm actually going to turn to Wolfgang.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And here's in my opinion, this is, sometimes I look at dealerships and they make money despite themselves. So, and I don't mean disrespect by that, but what happens is when we don't have a proper process in place for certain things. So, and we mentioned this earlier, like Starbucks gets it perfect every time, and no matter what store I'm at. So when you look at, what are we doing in the service drive? Are we checking these cars out? Do we check for tires? I mean, most tires are sold by somebody that's, 90% of the tires that are sold in the service department, 90% of tires sold anywhere are sold by a person who first recommended them. So do we recommend tires? Are we in the tire business? Or is that alignment rack in our workshop being used to store parts or, store cars that don't move? Are we using the alignment rack, and what is our process for doing that? are we selling, often you talk to service advisors and I go through this often, they start selling, mainly oil changes. Well, what is the recommended service from the manufacturer? Why is our hourly hours per RO only like 0.3, 0.5, and we should be up to 2 hours or 2.5? Are our service advisors selling services, and this adds also to the revenue in the service department. So there's many things. I mean, you looked at that video, in that opening video, where there's a service advisor trying to present a bill to somebody. I mean, and they lack the confidence. And the confidence, selling something to a client. Do they know what a maintenance is? Are they confident selling a maintenance? Are they confident selling those services? Are they confident selling what the workshop found? So those are all things that are important. Then in the back end, in the workshop, I look at technicians. I mean, what are we doing with technicians? To me, a technician that comes to a dealership every day and gives us 8 hours is a gift. And we look at that gift that they give us every day. It's up to us as the managers or the service advisors to really take opportunity with that gift. Are they running around? Are they waiting in the parts department? Do we not deliver parts to them? Are we giving bad information on ROs? Do we book service work in and we're not even prepared for the customer? How often, customer makes a service appointment and we all know what's wrong with the car before they even come in. Yet then as soon as we bring the car up on the hoist and the tech goes to the parts department, we tell the customer, well, we have to order the part. We all know what's wrong with this thing. And most of 60% of the stuff that comes in the service department, in the service lane, is predictable, and we know what's wrong with it. So it's all kinds of things that we have to look at our processes. And that goes back to my first statement, is they make money despite themselves. I mean, we do these things, and a lot of these processes should be improved, and it can be improved, and it's quite simply done. But what it does to the bottom line is incredible.
Very good point. You brought up something that made me think of the best salesperson in the automotive industry is the person from Hunter and their related companies that sells new builds, the alignment machine they drive over as they enter the service drive. It's very interesting how that happens, but then again, you need your process. Sure.
Add on to that, Wolfgang, because there's two different things there, right? That you just mentioned. One is process. So what goes on and how the techs are treated and how the shop runs, which is all behind the curtain. And number two, the customer experience. So when you talk about customer experience, and to your point, like a lot of dealerships made money in spite of themselves, COVID changed that too, because it took a lot of the processes that Jeff talked about and that my company's taught for years about the after sale experience and turned it into a keys to curb delivery. And so how are those customers going to be educated to now return back to service on a regular basis? So two different things there. One, process when it gets there, and the first part, how do you get them back? So there's two interesting topics there, Wolfgang. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. What do you think of what I mentioned? Is how does the fixed ops department grow? Because truly, sales departments are becoming more fixed at the moment because they're limited by the inventory because they can't get new and they're paying for used. So what else can service and parts do to grow that outside of the old way? Christine.
Well, I think the most important thing is looking at, people who weren't driving a lot or people who kept their car because there was no inventory. How can we promote now service to our high kilometer drivers or people who have not driven very much in these last 2 years? That should be a marketing campaign. Have you not been driving? Bring it in. Let us take a look at it. And the second thing should be people who've kept their car for longer than they normally would have, because there's going to be an opportunity now, once we get more chips and things get back to normal, to hopefully get them into another unit. But in the meantime and in between time, let's get them in for some service. And we never really talked about even collision center. Every dealership has got a collision center attached to it some way, right? What happens if you get a collision or an accident? Do you need floor mats? Do you get a lot of bugs on the front of your car? We sell a cleaning product for that. People need to look beyond the lube lane, right? And again, customer experience to now how do we get customers to look at other things in our dealership? Detailing. Detailing is a no-brainer. Like, it's Valentine's Day coming up. My daughter always says, what do you want? I go, detailing for my car. That's what I want, right? I want my mats cleaned. So Lots of opportunity, Jeff. Absolutely. But we just got to look in the right places.
But there's actually a great comment. I'm not sure if it was Sentez or another deal group on the show. She said basically they have a draw every month for their service department where basically one customer wins a free detail as from the dealership group. And I thought that was really interesting because it was basically a good news to share with the customer. But more importantly, it's a reason to come back. There was a comment here. Service departments are actually retention and revenue generation machines. 86% of regular service customers become repeat customers. And I think that's a great bit of data. I'm not sure where it's from, but I'm assuming it's coming from probably NADA or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But when I work with GM dealers, when I set up call centers, their retention goal at the time, and this was a number of years ago, was 40%, which I thought was really low. But anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
And we did
great comment. Thank
I
you,
did
Alex.
some testing. When we did the seminars, like when we could do live format, 87% of people who attended an event came back to that dealership for service for the next 4 years because they got educated.
Right.
A smiling face said, "Thank you for buying from us. Now I'm going to teach you about brake service, alignment, rotate." This is what we did. So it was a win.
Larry, you got your hand up. Share with us what you have to say.
I do, my buddy, and good to see all you guys again. Everything that everybody's saying, I agree with. I had one small suggestion. We had like the old war and like those movies with the cattle ranchers and the sheep ranchers with the front and back. And what we did is we had little contests where we would team up guys from sales with guys with service, in addition to having sales service meetings. Because if you don't get these guys in the room and make them understand that they're on the same team and they need each other and make it fun, throw a little incentives in. Like when she said early, like the pizza and the party up front, that's kind of stupid because without your service department, you never get anything done and you never get the repeat, customer. But I think it's something you have to be proactive with and get the guys in the same room. It's when you do, they see, hey, we're on the same side.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, Larry. I mean, when I sold cars, I used to buy the service guys every week pizza. What did that get me? It got me the support and love of them, but also whenever I had a question or whenever they had a customer, I got the referral from them all the time. Why? Because I actually took the time to speak to them, but more importantly, visit with them. And the first dealership I worked with, the service department, was in a different building, a couple blocks away from the dealership I worked at. Nobody from sales, other than me, ever came down to even talk to the technicians.
No, Ian, what I really used to despise is how they would beat up or disrespect the cleanup guys. These are guys that at 9 o'clock at night, they got a rag and some polish, could get a scratch out, they made your deals. It just, I don't know. I never understood people not cooperate, particularly not at a dealership, because you definitely need each other.
100%.
One thing before we continue with Gene on this topic, Alex posted a link to LinkedIn. So don't look now, copy it later because we don't want you off the show. But on why we must first offer, whoever offers the first hire, be the first offer replacement tires. Something I always believed in heavily. But Gene, what's your position on what else can fixed ops do? Because again, right now sales is doing everything they can without even trying.
Well, when Wolfgang was talking, I was thinking of it, just stimulated in my mind the story about how John Wooden used to make his entire team every single year at the beginning of the first practice in UCLA basketball learn how to put their socks on. Because in those days, the shoes were so bad that if you didn't put your socks on right, you would get blisters and you couldn't play. So it was the fundamentals, and everything that Wolfgang was talking about was the fundamentals. And rather than think about, because I've seen challenges with this where a department, whether it's sales, service, or whatever, is looking so far outside of growth, and they're not even doing the fundamentals and maximizing what they have right in front of them. And so, for example, do you have a great appointment process in place? I mean, are you working by appointment? If your dealership is just not working by appointment, then you're losing all kind of opportunity to spend quality time with the customer. Even if it has to be a virtual appointment where you're using a camera to show the vehicle walk around. Are you walking around the vehicle and showing the customer? Time mileage recommendations were brought up. Is that mileage recommendation addressed when a customer calls in to make that appointment call? and we look in the system and see that they're not just due for an oil change, but they're due for a 30,000 mile service. And we just make that recommendation to them now. Hey, by the way, you're due for this. Are we doing the fundamentals? Because I think we're leaving so much money on the table without trying to look outside to grow it bigger like this. Just do the right thing. We're going to grow it naturally. That's at least my thought.
So I want to ask you your thoughts on something else. You reminded me of something. Are we looking to grow on all business or just the stuff that we're being judged on? In other words, you know, when we go into our 20 group meetings, et cetera, we talk about hours per RO, you know, first service, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing I always had pushback from, when they do the walk around, first of all, getting an advisor to do a walk around right then and there, one, to sell more stuff, and B, to cover your butt, but to literally say to somebody, hey, you got a ding in your door. What if I can get that removed for you?
Right.
Is it actually important what we're making, or is it important to what we're showing so somebody can look good or feel good?
I mean, I think, to answer the question, I think it's very important that we show the customer what the opportunities are so that they're familiar with their vehicle. It's not just about us selling, but about us informing them, and to Christine's point earlier, educating the customer on their own car. I mean, if you pop the hood and like in Phoenix, we have dust storms all the time, right? And if you just come in for an oil change, but you don't pop the hood and show them how filthy it is underneath their hood, then they aren't going to necessarily want to go for the air cleaners, you know, the engine air filter and the cabin air filter, that even though it might not be recommended right now, it's filthy in there. We need to replace it now. Now they see it, right? It's obvious to them. But why stop there? I mean, customers, what is the statistic? Within 90 days of buying their car, they spend almost $1,200 on accessorizing or personalizing their vehicle. We're not even offering that in the dealerships. Why do we not offer that? So there's an opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's for darn sure. Last but not least on this topic, Brett, what do you think? I mean, again, you're a variable guy and a lot in the wholesale side of things too, but what do you think that they can do to expand on this?
One thing, and I'm going to go with my experience with working with dealerships and using them for personal use, is these service department waiting areas in a lot of the stores are like a junkyard. It's not a pleasant place to be. And so I, don't even want to go there. I will say that there's a dealership in Atlanta, Georgia that I used to visit. It's an import store, and they spent millions of dollars redoing the store and put in heated toilets. My wife looked them up. They're $5,000 a piece because she wanted to put one in her house. But she would actually go with me to drop the car off for service because she wanted to go and experience the dealership for the customer service side of it, or the experience side of it. I mean, it was amazing. It's when you take the time to put thought into your customers are spending time here while they're waiting for their car, you want to come back and spend more money there.
Right. Is there nothing worse than you're in the dealership and now you got to ask somebody, what's the Wi-Fi password? Can I get the Wi-Fi? Can I get the Wi-Fi? Make it available, right? You know, these people have spent $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a new vehicle, and all we can offer them is a styrofoam cup of the same old crappy coffee. You know, bring something in. And it doesn't cost a lot and the washrooms. I'll tell you as a woman, you better have tidy washrooms. I want to have paper. I want to have soap. Right? Tidy washrooms. Yes. The little things that mean the most.
Dust bunnies in the corners, and the TV that's, this big and showing.
It's completing the thought process too. I was at a GM store and taking a car in for the lot I'm involved in just for a recall. And I'm sitting in the waiting area and I was so excited because I walked in and there was a blown 454 V8 engine sitting there on the engine rack. And I'm going, wow, that's so cool. And then there's jackets and there's hats. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. And literally, it's right outside of the service desk. And then there's a customer just going ballistic because somebody was too nervous to explain their service bill to them. So they're thinking on one side and not on another. But Ian, I'll turn it over to you for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I was in Japan in 2019 and I went to a Lexus store. And it was the most unique experience of my life because everybody at the dealership was reverent to the fact that you even showed up. Like everybody. Like not just the service drive, the greeter, everybody's like, thank you very much for coming in and how can we help you? And I've never had that experience at a store in North America of any brand. And it was part of it was cultural, but part of it was just like we really appreciate the fact that you showed up today. How can we do something for you? So it was kind of interesting. Anyway, what would you change or recommend dealers take now to harmonize fixed variable operations? What changes would you recommend? Let's start with Wolfgang.
Well, I mean, communication is always a big thing between sales and fixed. Their expectation is we want to, obviously, if they sell a car, we want to have that car ready and delivered, or if they have a car that's a new car for the lot, especially now, you want to get that car ready for the lot as quick as possible. So communication, I mean, I think one big thing that a lot of dealerships that I've worked with have now put in place is, they'll have a sales, they'll have a little meeting, they'll have a huddle, once a day to see what's going on, what's out for delivery, what needs to be cleaned, anything that's a problem, any car that's in the shop that has a back order problem or anything like that. That'd be one thing. The next thing is, and someone mentioned it earlier, I think it was Gene, about having getting everyone involved. I mean, it shouldn't just be a party for the front end. It should be everybody. You should be thanking the dealership and celebrate all your successes that you do, whether it be a new car sales or celebrating an apprentice that gets licensed, and you're going to throw a barbecue out. I mean, celebrate these things and get everybody involved and get that team together. That's the best thing I find is being able to thank your staff for what you do. And it doesn't matter which department has had that success, but we can all celebrate it together. And whether it's detailing that's done a great job, or whether it's a technician that's solved a problem with a problem car and got recognized from the manufacturer, or whether it's a salesperson out front that's hit their target and knocked it out of the park with some sales hits. So I think you should have these things, be genuine. I think that's very important. Don't just run around. I had a dealer once that I worked with, and every day at 8:30 he walked around and thanked every team member for what he's done. But eventually by Wednesday, everyone thought, oh, this is pretty ingenuous, and then it's pretty fake. So be genuine in what you're doing and what you're celebrating.
Appreciate that, Wolfgang. Brett?
Sorry. Just had a message come through that I should not be looking at. I think the departments working together is key. When you have management supporting both sides of the dealership working together, I think everyone's going to win. And as Wolfgang said, celebrate everybody, not just one department.
So you mean wrestling belts for the service department?
Sure.
Christine. Sorry, I see a lot of that on LinkedIn, wrestling belts for the salespeople. So.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, nobody here is, I don't think, a salesperson, maybe Super Sue, I see her down there. Hey, Sue. They always cut the tie of the male salesperson, right? What's the female equivalent?
You can bring it up. We're not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
I was just going to say, do you guys cut ties in the service department? Because I know I still have my tie from sales a long time ago.
I don't think they do that in service, and they don't ring the gong, and nobody gets congratulated. Cool. Yeah, what can you do to bring the team together? Well, of course, everybody's going to talk about meetings, cohesiveness, and collaboration, right? But, the sales team is fairly driven by projects, spiffs, contests. Why don't you incentivize your sales team to participate in the service process? For example, the salesperson that gets the most first appointments for the month, the salesperson that recommends the most hires and closes a deal for a month. I mean, you get spiffed on F&I. Why shouldn't you get spiffed in service, right? And I'll go back to it again because I think it's really important is team jackets. Like so many times the sales guys have got the jackets and then the golf shirt. And I know the techs are wearing the coveralls, right, with the logo. But when you leave, there's nothing better than company pride when you leave at the end of the day, particularly if you've been turning wrench back there. There's no air conditioning, there's no free lunch. Sometimes it's important just to build that sense of community culture and camaraderie.
I think you should get an esthetician in it once a week, so do their hands and stuff. Get rid of all the dry skin.
Well, the young guys are all wearing gloves now, so you don't need that.
And Sue said lots of luck, love it, but doesn't have a comment on the tie.
Yeah. I actually have to mention John Latka brought something up, and he says the dealer should focus on CPR, CPR, communications, processes, and relationships, and synergy.
Yeah. Again, I go back to the 3 points, right? When am I taking it in? How much is it going to cost? When am I going to get it back? That's the customer experience you want to build. And here's the interesting thing. A lot of these places with the kiosks and stuff, we talked about walk around, right? Jean talked about walk around. How does that happen if you've got these other things in place? So COVID has certainly changed the game for the relationships that build in service.
I agree with that. I mean, when you look at the kiosks, with GoMoto or Storm or other, I think GoMoto is owned by Reynolds and Storm is a Canadian company competing, but those kiosks are kind of similar to what's happening in fast food restaurants where really generations prefer them. Like if you ever are in a McDonald's or other that has a kiosk, the reason for those kiosks was really to disconnect from that line philosophy. But what's interesting about them is, and I actually know the gentleman who used to be in charge of marketing for McDonald's in Canada, so I asked him this question. People buy more stuff from a kiosk than they do from a person because they don't see the people behind them. But part of the challenge, I think, in service departments is everyone books an appointment for the first thing in the morning, and then you're just overrun. So I think kiosks, if they're implemented into a good process in the morning, can be very powerful. But more importantly, you're still going to have people that have questions.
Right.
And actually, Sue says, I never cut a single tie in her career.
But my 24-year-old daughter, when she takes the car in for service, she phones me and hands the phone to the service guy for me to do the talking. Like, how can we educate these young people who are buying cars now with their own money, right, about the vehicle they purchased and how to take care of it long term? It can't be your father's uncle or your best friend's dad comes with you anymore, right? There's lots of opportunity, fellas.
So Ian, you just said something about how packed it gets early in the morning. And one of the things that we used to do at our dealerships was we would cross-train. So sales team members would work the drive in the morning, first thing when it got so loaded up, and they would learn to just take the basic general information, greet the customer, do the basic info off the car, and then let them know, hey, let's get you into the waiting area and get you a cup of coffee, whatever you need, and then hand it over to a service department team member so that then it would smooth the process a little bit. But I want to go back to one other thing. And when I was wrenching cars years and years ago, and I was sitting in church on Sunday, the pastor was teaching on relationships. And my MBA instructor, Chris Haroon, says relationships are more important than product knowledge. And he told the story about the best sales guy that was a friend of his in the car business. And he said, how come you're number one? And he said, because when I greet a customer on the lot, I say, before we start talking about cars, I want to show you around and get you to know a little bit about who we are as a dealership. Because quite frankly, it takes only a couple hours to buy a car, but who takes care of you after you buy it is more important than buying the car. Wouldn't you agree? And everybody said yes. And so he toured them in the facility, okay, including service before they ever sat down to do the fact finding. Well, when I got into sales, I remembered that story and I started doing that. And I would walk the customers right into the service bay area and have them talk to techs about our product. And they loved it. And I just let the tech sell the car. So that was one way to just entertain. Now today with COVID, as Christine keeps bringing up, that might be a little more challenging, but why not do a virtual tour? If a customer reaches out to you online, we do virtual walkarounds with them all the time.
Well, that's a great example. And the one that I learned from a dealership, I think they were in the U.S., is what they had the salesman tour the service department after when they were delivering the car. But after hours, what they had was a paper cutout of that service advisor with cards like in their pocket when they weren't there. So, okay, here's Bob.
Yeah.
Representation of Bob.
Yeah. Their pictures should all be on the internet anyway, right? Shouldn't their staff pictures be there? And if it's closed, they just go to their website. Hey, by the way, here's our website. Here's our service department. That's who you'll be greeting right there, right on the phone here. That's who you'll see when you come in.
That's one of my pet peeves about the industry, because there's nobody more important than staff. If you ask dealer principals, and what percentage of dealerships have 80% of their staff pictured?
Yeah.
Or not a good or consistent picture. Like, why do you not have that? I mean, I think you can take it to the next level and put a video of that service writer or salesperson. I mean, the younger ones are definitely comfortable with video, but even the older ones should be. I mean, video is becoming the way people communicate today. Wolfgang?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've been to dealerships where they don't put their pictures up and email or contact information until the probationary period's done. It's just,
You're on probation.
Yeah, I just
Picture for you.
I am curious from Brett. Brett, does your sales team do a service introduction at delivery or?
So I actually work for a fleet company now.
Oh, okay.
I've been on most of the wholesale side of the business, but I have worked with dealerships. When I worked for a dealership many years ago, I used to go into the service department every morning and greet all the customers, because the best way to get a new car sale is to get a trade-in. And if a customer's in there in the service department with a car with an issue, I can probably buy them out of that car.
100%. And most salespeople in the showroom, when someone comes in from service and they ask, what are you here for, service, they turn around and go back to their desk.
Yes, instead of actually saying, what's your car in for service for?
Oh, you're a service customer? Okay, you're not here. You're not
What
here.
are you driving today?
Jeff?
Let me sign you up for an order for 2 years. Just kidding. So I had a question written down here for everybody, but I'm going to change that a little bit. You know, my question was originally, why is there a rivalry? But something I did a long time ago in the 90s with my salespeople, anytime I did a new hire, I actually made them spend a day in every department before they ever even started sales training. Do you think job sharing or job swapping or something is a good idea? And why don't I go with Christine?
Oh, I knew you were going to come to me first. I don't think I need to do your job to appreciate your job, but I need to know you as a person, right? Because I think you just, the dealership is service, and it's been mentioned before, the service advisor is the busiest salesperson in the building. I'm not sure they have time to have a shadow all day. The parts guy doesn't have time to have, and I know the techs probably wouldn't want it. I know I wouldn't. But I don't need to know what you do to know who you are, right? So I think to the points that have been mentioned earlier, maybe even just organize a lunch, a coffee break, so that people can meet more than just once a year at the Christmas party, right? We don't need to necessarily work in parts and service to understand the importance of parts and service. And frankly, you might be in the way. So I just think that the relationship with the team members is more important than the actual job itself.
So what you're saying is you don't really want a customer to see that your brake replacement was supervised by Charlie in sales.
Yeah, I remember I was on this show and I said, don't buy winter tires where you buy frozen shrimp. I'm not sure you want an unqualified person spinning wrench on your vehicle.
You mean you shouldn't get your oil done at Mr. Lube?
That's what I'm saying. Or the big Costco, Don't buy winter tires where you buy frozen shrimp.
I have a comment or question from LinkedIn, ironically from a Tesla supporter. New companies like Tesla do not have that problem because they are built on new foundations. Yes, I have worked at old OEMs, hell with ideas from the 50s. Anyway,
I wonder who that is.
I don't know. They're a nondescript LinkedIn user.
Do they really? So the question is, do they really not have those problems?
Well, it's ironic because a buddy of mine worked for a Tesla corporate a couple blocks away from my house. They have a service department, and they actually have expanded that service department recently. And he told me working for them, he no longer works for them. He went back to work for an OEM, I think. But he said it was like working for a startup. And the reality is Tesla has just as many service problems, if not more. because of the fact that really they're trying to reimagine the car business. But I think their big mistake initially, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong here, was they made the mistake of not hiring people who maybe knew how to do it and thinking they could rebuild it. And that caused a whole slew of other problems around the fact that that person who bought a $100,000 Tesla, for example, had maybe an expectation of service that was a little higher than what they were initially doing with people that weren't trained properly. Now, I think that's changed, but it's still, a long wait time for people who own a Tesla to get that car fixed, in some cases months. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on the service model for Tesla. I know we've had fanboys of Tesla on the show before, but I thought that was an interesting comment. So anyone wants to comment, feel free. Don't all speak at once.
No, but that's okay. We'll move on here, and please raise your hand, wave your arms, whatever, because we'd love to hear more about this. Because I know I've met with a few people that own Teslas, and frankly, they're saying it's not a lot different. Yeah. They sit and wait. They try. They actually try. And I mean, I know that person who mentioned that's going to come after us and I'm just kidding, but is not going to be happy to hear it. But it's a bit of a reality. It is like Starbucks. You want to go get your coffee, it's going to be hot, so don't put it on your lap. And I don't care who does it.
If I'm going to spend $100K on a coffee, it better be the best damn coffee I ever drank in my life.
Exactly.
Right?
But on the good side of the coin is, right now, your $100,000 coffee 3 years ago, today is worth 110. Gene, what's your position on job sharing?
Well, we used to have people spend time in every department. They didn't do their job, with the exception of what I described earlier, where they would just take the customer information to kind of alleviate the load. We didn't cross-train them to do the other people's job, but we did have them sit in the other people's department and observe, so that they understood what was going on and what the stresses were, and how really what we were focusing on was, how does what I do in my department, how is it impacted by what they do, or how is what I'm doing impacting what they do? So it was really more of an understanding element. So I like it. I like the idea. Great. And by the way, Russ, man, love you. Had to shout him out.
Everybody loves Russ. What about, have you had any experience with people with Teslas?
Me personally, no,
not direct yet. Experience working there, but have you heard anything?
So no, I haven't. I mean, I was part of the EV1 project way back when with General Motors. Oh. And I also happened to have the opportunity to write the sales training for the Outlander PHEV for the US market for Mitsubishi. So I'm familiar with what goes on with electric vehicles and all of the challenges that they face. And really, all I can say is that the infrastructure is nowhere close to being what we need for it to take hold strongly. I think it's a great idea of what we're trying to do. I think PHEVs are going to be a lot stronger than all electric vehicles. And because of that, I don't see service departments going away anytime soon, because there is the regular gas motor involved with that as well.
Sure. And
you
actually,
can buy a car online, right? You can buy a car online. I can deliver it to your house, but I can't fix it there. That's a fact, right? Yeah,
there's some minor repairs that you can do there, but I mean, when it comes to serious diagnostic and making sure that you have all the tools and resources to do significant repairs, no, you can't.
There was a trending comment actually I saw last week from somebody who's very well connected with Teslas, and they were very upset because there was a recall issued on Tesla for something, and I don't remember what it was, so I won't guess. But it was an over-the-air fix. So why should it be called a recall? And they were actually, I like this person a lot, so I don't want to be snide, but they were offended that how dare they put this in the same category as cars, because they are different. And frankly, Gene, you mentioned having been with Saturn and that sort of stuff. I think they're trying to make their customer service way more like Saturn than anything else.
Right. And even Jeff, even with what you just mentioned, the over-the-air update, I mean, that is one thing to think about as we move forward with technology. We have to deal with it all the time on our phones and on our computers, and that is software updates. And I know that Subaru's going through one right now where some of their Skylink connections have to be reset to accommodate 5G. And if you didn't do it by February 1st or something, then you're out of luck. I mean, I don't know all the details, but they were sending in notices to all their customers. Hey, you got to go get this software update.
Well,
You can't get it through Apple CarPlay?
Yeah, I guess not.
Well, the other challenge, Jeff, and there was a very interesting article that I read online, I think, or I heard about, I think through LinkedIn. There's a gentleman talking about electric cars, and I know there's been a lot of, I guess, spin on safety and on other things. But the article was quite interesting because it talked about two areas with electric cars that no one's talked about. Number one, the weight of them. They're about 1,000 pounds on average heavier than their gas counterparts. And number two, the wear and tear on the roads they're on, but also the wear and tear on tires and brakes on an electric car, because that battery, whether it's discharged or charged, doesn't reduce in terms of weight, and also preferential treatment from crash testing, because if you happen to be in a car that's 1,000 pounds heavier than what you're hitting, you're safer. And that's a physics argument, it's not a design argument. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation, specifically in the electric car area, from some electric car makers, I won't name any names, on our cars are superior. The reality is it's still a vehicle. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, Wolfgang actually just made a comment there, and he's my next person I'm going to ask in this opinion. So actually his comment was to just post about them. One thing I do want to say to our audience is we work very hard to make sure we get people that are top of their fields on the Auto Hub Show, and they know their stuff. And if there's their products or their services, please reach out to them, because we can tell you this, that they are the top of the field, and they can certainly help you out. And we won't even ask for a royalty. So Wolfgang, ask what's your opinion on getting fixed ops people to spend some time, walk a mile in their shoes, hang around salespeople, vice versa in the back end.
Well, I mean, one of the things, and Gene touched on it before, what he's done, and I strongly believe that is our onboarding process with dealerships is less than ideal as what I've run into. We love to hire a new person, and I mean, when speaking, because I've made this mistake as a manager at Mercedes. You hire a person that's so excited to start working at a Mercedes-Benz store, and their first day there, we stick them in a computer and they do some safety training for 2 days. I mean, they go home and they talk to their significant others, and what a drain on how was your first day, honey? And oh, I did safety training on a computer for 2 days. So basically, we changed that approach, and this is what we teach now: is also, hey, get them excited. They're excited to be there about the product. I mean, we're the car business. Get them on a car. Get them to try out our product, and that would be the first thing I would say. But then the next thing I would get them, I have all my managers then talk to a new hire. So if it's a new service provider, they're going to spend time with the new car sales manager. What is our process? How do we sell a car around here? What are we all about? And the parts manager, and a salesperson is going to experience the same thing. They're going to meet with a technician in the back and see, this is what's involved. This is what we do back here, and have some respect for, what happens in the back in the workshop. But, even as simple as a parts process, how do we order parts? Where does it come from? How fast can we get these things? So a salesperson understands those types of things. So absolutely, I think that onboarding process should be some excitement for what the product is and what you've just joined, to make sure that they've made that they feel good about the right decision they made to join that dealership. But also, get to know the staff in each department, what happens, be it a salesperson coming in after sales, or be it someone in after sales spending some time with the sales manager. I think it's vitally important.
So that's a great point, and it's very funny. We always like to talk about this. We bring this up and we say our onboarding and how we treat our people and everything else. And whenever we have an HR show or a staff-related show, we have very, very low viewership listening stats. And it's phenomenal how, you scan through LinkedIn every day and you see what I do here is I hire the best people and I get the heck out of their way. And then we hire somebody, and that's the first thing we do, is get the heck out of their way and stick them in a room in front of a computer or a TV and say, learn. So it's a very, very interesting point. Ian,
Well, we're out of time, Jeff, so I wanted to see if anyone had any final thoughts in sensitiveness to time. So go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to say thank you, everybody, and nice meeting everybody here. It was a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. I really enjoyed this hour. So thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Jeff. Always great to be here.
Well, we like to have people aboard. And one thing I'm starting to do at the end of the show, I just want to remind everybody. So our guests today were Christine Mitchell, the Car Lady Canada, but I'm sure she won't turn anybody down in the United States of America or Europe. We have European listeners. And Christine, again, just look her up online. She's put in the chat her contact information. We have Gene Girdley, the president and founder of Delray Learning. And same thing, he's got his book up there. Ian, remember the book so we can promote that next time. Yep. Brett Federico, of the remarketing manager of Finn, and who is a fleet company. And I guess you can't reach out to him, but if you do need fleet stuff, contact Brett. And Wolfgang Kohler of Automotive After Sales Consultant, of firing on all cylinders. And the only question I would have for Wolfgang in parting is what happens when the electric cars come out? Do you call that as running on more brushes?
Yeah. Good point.
Thank you all for joining us. We greatly appreciate you taking the time. Thanks to our listeners, you keep us going. And of course, thanks to our sponsors, which keep our smiling faces on there. And please look them up because frankly, they don't sponsor us because we're just so good looking. It might be me, I don't know. Thank you all.
Hey, Ross.
What? One more. Thanks.